She said, "You overthink everything." I smiled. She thought it was insecurity. But it was awareness. Why do self-aware men seem to carry a quiet sadness? Why are those who understand themselves most, often the most misunderstood? You grow up believing that being real, being honest, being you, will bring people closer. But the more self-aware you become, the more you notice. People don't really want truth. They want comfort. And comfort doesn't live where self-awareness does. This isn't a video about being too smart for the world. This is about the pain of seeing too clearly. Of realizing that your depth, your greatest gift, is also your greatest isolation. Let's explore why, through the quiet, haunting wisdom of a man who lived ahead of his time, Friedrich Nietzsche. The self-aware man is not arrogant. He's observant. He doesn't react to insults because he understands projection. He doesn't compete for attention because he sees how fleeting it is. He doesn't chase people because he's already spent years trying to chase himself. But to others, that looks cold. Detached. In a world built on reactions, the man who pauses is mistaken for someone who doesn't care. But he cares. A lot. Just not in the way others expect. He doesn't crave to be liked. He craves to be understood. But that's the problem. Understanding is expensive. It requires time, patience, depth. And most people today are bankrupt. We want quick connections, fast replies, instant validation. We want relationships we don't have to earn. But the self-aware man doesn't offer cheap intimacy. He offers presence. And presence makes people nervous, because it's hard to fake who you are when someone actually sees you. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what happens when your why makes you unrelatable? When you don't want shallow pleasure, but purpose? When you don't crave control, but clarity? You stop being entertaining. You stop being easy to date. And you start being avoided. Because the man who knows himself is hard to impress. Harder to manipulate. And almost impossible to control. He becomes a mirror, not one that flatters, but one that reveals. And people fear that. Not because he's wrong. But because he's right, too often. So what does society do with him? It ignores him. Mocks him. Or punishes him with silence. We've built a culture that rewards performance over presence. Where loud is seen as strong. And deep is seen as difficult. The self-aware man, who notices the nuances, who refuses to play roles, becomes unreadable. And what we can't read, we reject. Especially in love. Modern romance isn't about mutual growth. It's about mutual distraction. And self-awareness ruins that. It's hard to play the talking stage game with someone who sees through it. It's hard to fake confidence when he can feel the insecurity underneath. It's hard to lie when he already knows the truth you're afraid to admit. And so he's labeled as intimidating. Emotionally unavailable. Not because he lacks emotion, but because he refuses to weaponize it. He doesn't ghost people. He distances himself from drama. He doesn't beg to be understood. He accepts being alone. That silence. That solitude. It's not bitterness. It's survival. Nietzsche once said, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." And that's exactly what happens. You either lose yourself to fit in. Or lose others to stay whole. The self-aware man chooses the latter. Not because he wants to, but because pretending is far lonelier than being alone. But here's the secret, his solitude is not punishment. It's refinement. In his isolation, he sharpens his mind. He disciplines his emotions. He studies the world, but even more, he studies himself. While others drown in distraction, he learns how to breathe in stillness. That doesn't mean he's above anyone. He's not a hero. He struggles. He doubts. He hurts. But he's awake. And in a world that teaches you to numb yourself, that's rare. So, if you are that man, if your depth has become a burden, if your silence is mistaken for coldness, if your honesty costs you connection, remember this. You're not broken. You're just living in a world that fears what it cannot control. And self-awareness is the ultimate rebellion. Don't dim your depth to make others comfortable. Don't shrink to fit their expectations. And don't apologize for being too real in a world addicted to fake. Because one day, someone will meet you where you are, not in your silence, but in your truth. Until then, walk alone. But never backwards.